The thing that has been on my mind above almost anything else over the last few months has been AI. Everywhere I go, if you're as terminally online as I am, you've probably seen this. Everywhere you go on Twitter, YouTube, wherever, it is AI this, AI that. It's going to take your job. It's going to kill your family. It's going to do all these things. It's going to completely change everything. Every industry is going to get completely upended and changed by AI. And I kind of just wanted to talk about how I'm feeling about this and some of the things that I'm doing to really try and embrace and use this and try and figure out what's hype and what's real. Because that's what's tricky here is, at least personally, I'm not a huge crypto guy. I remember back in 2021 when all the crypto bros were out there doing their crypto things. You'd get spammed with DMs from broccoli hair guys telling you need to buy this crypto and do all these things. And also, I'm fully aware. I think I do have the hair. I'm sorry. I can't control it. I have curly hair. I promise I can't double your MRR risk free in 30 days. I'm sorry on behalf of all broccoli boys everywhere. I'm sorry, but what I found with the crypto stuff is, to me, I wasn't that interested and I didn't think it was going to change that much, even though a lot of people still do. And, there might be a use case there. I think AI is a lot more immediate. And to me, at least from what I can see from the outside, and again, this is just the musings of a 21-year-old college student, so don't take any of this as gospel. This is just my ideas on this and what I'm doing to try and embrace it and figure out how to actually use this in a meaningful way to enhance what I'm building and set myself up better for the future. But, there's a lot of stuff here where it's like, I think AI actually does have very good use cases. Obviously, there's stuff that's already existed in the world, stuff like the YouTube algorithm, stuff like cheating on your homework with ChatGPT, stuff like image classification for like crops and stuff like that, where you can run a drone over your fields and you can look down and be like, hey, that's a parasite, or hey, that's this, or whatever. There's a ton of incredibly useful applications already out in the real world. But I've noticed a lot of my like day-to-day stuff, I don't have a huge use for the AI in it. And I've also noticed a lot of products going the way of like adding AI in ways that I'm like, is this really helpful? Like a really good example of this is like Notion. I love Notion. I use it to organize everything. This channel would not function without it. My businesses would not run without it. I'm able to manage teams with it. I love it. But they've added this like Notion AI thing, which constantly gets thrown in my face. I'm like, man, I don't need you to generate my Jira cards. I just need you to be a great note-taking system. I don't want you to do all this extra shit. And it doesn't feel like a super meaningful application. So that's been a thing I've been thinking about a lot about lately is, okay, how do I put this into my apps? Because I do want to put this into the stuff I'm building. I've got Insider Viz, I've got Block, I've got some other side projects I'm working on. I'm working on stuff for this channel. I want to be using AI in a meaningful way here because I do think it has a lot of potential. And I think a lot of people, especially like in the tech world, aren't thinking too much about how to really use it. I want to do that. But I want to do it in a way that's not stupid. And I also want to think about ways to go through and actually use AI in a meaningful way to enhance my development experience, because that's something that we see everywhere. You see, a couple weeks ago, there was that Devin thing where that one company or whatever put out their like AI pair programmer called Devin, where everyone was melting down on Twitter and there were videos that were getting absurd views of like, is Devin going to take your job and kill your kids? Maybe, but I kind of doubt it, at least for a while. And, it's stuff like that where it's like, okay, I don't think that's going to be the solution, at least not for a while. But what can I do today to actually use AI in an effective way? Because I don't really use it right now all that much, although I have started to, and I found some stuff that I do think is useful. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video. It's going to be, what are the ways that we can put this into products in meaningful ways? And what can I do to actually enhance my development experience? And I also want to kind of just talk about some of the stuff that I want to learn here, because I am not an AI engineer. I'm not a data scientist, and I'm not going to be. I'm not going to grad school to get a PhD in AI. To me, it's always just going to be a magical post request. My friends and I have explained, and they're way more into this than I am. They've explained generally how it works. They've gone over backpropagation, showed me the neural nets and all these things. And I'm like, okay, that's really neat, but like, whatever. I want to build products and make cool things and do web dev and talk on this camera. Like, whatever. I don't care. So for me, it's like, okay, how do I use this magic post request really effectively? But there's a whole art to that. And there are a lot of important tools that I don't really understand yet. And I need to figure out how to make good apps with this. So that's what we're going to talk about. So first and foremost, let's talk about the developer experience and the things that we can do, at least that I'm doing as a developer. And I'd love to hear what you guys are thinking and what you're doing to actually enhance my dev experience. So the first and most obvious one is Copilot. That's the one we've all seen and a lot of us probably use. I was a huge Copilot user when it came out like 2 or a year and a half ago. I don't really know at this point. Time doesn't make any sense anymore. But whenever Copilot came out, I was using that all the time. It was really helpful at work. It allowed me to be quicker. It allowed me to effectively automate a lot of annoying boilerplate. But over time, I've moved away from it because I found it hallucinating really hard, and I found it not actually being that useful for a lot of my applications. It would give me these uncanny valley solutions where I would be, let's just use this as an example. Like within my helper functions here, if I wanted to create my workout or something like that, it would be able to generate this function to pass in date, location, name, progress, insert that into the database, return some error or whatever. I'm also changing how I do error management in JavaScript instead of throwing in stuff. This is inspired by Golang. Golang is great. But anyway, tangent aside, if I had it generate this, there were always like little things that were just slightly off about it, where some capitalization would be wrong or some little field wouldn't make any sense. And it would be this really annoying thing where I'm like, this just isn't that helpful. And I'd rather just think about it myself. And also, I spend so much time thinking about new technologies, new languages, new frameworks, all this stuff. I know it's kind of a meme where like, yeah, I'm constantly messing with a new language and framework. And that's true. And that's going to continue to be true because I think that different things solve different problems in different ways. And B, I just genuinely love this stuff. And I think it's fun. Like I like messing with AstroDB and then going and checking out RSCs and then going back to SvelteKit. And there's a bunch of stuff in Go world that I really want to go try and play with. So like, I just love this stuff and I want to mess with more of it. That's just kind of where I am. But, taking that aside, when I'm learning new stuff, Copilot I found really hinders my ability to learn stuff. I crutch on it way too hard, and I actually caught myself doing that in the early days of SvelteKit, where like it would generate most of my code for me, and I realized like, wait, crap, I don't actually know how a lot of this works. I couldn't produce a load function off the top of my head, and that's a problem. So I've moved away from that. Oh, and also the one other thing too, if you use Copilot, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The unholy cursed closing curly braces thing is the worst. You will have it generate a function for you. It will generate everything. And then at the very end, it will fuck up the curly braces in the most subtle way possible. And you will spend 15 minutes debugging curly braces and will end up deleting the entire function and rewriting it yourself because they did it so freaking wrong. And it drives me freaking insane. That was one of the worst parts of using Copilot was the freaking curly braces. It would always get those wrong. That was the worst. But yeah, so Copilot for AI stuff, really not something that I'm using too much right now. I'll probably go back to it eventually. But the two things that I have actually been using a lot has been one, Perplexity. Perplexity is, it's a wrapper around GPT or Claude or whatever, which allows you to query the internet and do a bunch of different stuff. It's really good. Did I just say query the internet? I did just say, we're leaving that in. So it allows you to, it's basically a LLM, which is enhanced with the internet, and allows you to do different things. A really great example is like earlier today, I was sitting here and I'm like, wait, I just need to block for this example for one of the things I was building. And the way I did that is I was just like, okay, give me that function. And I asked it for it. It gives me this. And now I can be like, oh, okay, I get how this works. I can copy paste this into my code and it makes sense. You can also do stuff when you're learning new things. So like I was just doing an example earlier, like, okay, how do we do like SvelteKit authentication? We get this lovely video right here made by someone. And, that's really nice. And then also, like I was password protecting a zip. So it's just really, it feels like a better Google to me. Like instead of going on to Stack Overflow, I just use this. One of the best examples of this being incredibly useful is working with local Docker images and local MySQL instances. These are two topics which I have found to be notoriously painful to Google. I don't know why, but they just are. Say what you will about the JS ecosystem and all its problems. The documentation is pretty much across the board phenomenal there. I can't really think of any major framework or package which doesn't have incredible documentation. These two I've always found didn't. So having this nice little thing where I can go and say like, hey, how do I do all these things with like setting up local Docker image for MySQL? Because fun fact, my computer is so screwed up at this point in the CLI world where like MySQL just doesn't work anymore. So huge mess there. This is a really great way for me to just get the quick information I need to run stuff like this and just ask it questions. And this has been one of the most useful ways I've learned it, because this style of thing, I actually end up learning it because it doesn't do it for me. It basically just curates documentation for me. So this was really no different than me going to a Docker MySQL quick start guide. It just generates the quick start guide for me. And I really, really like that about it. I've also found too, one of the tools that I've been using has been the V0 tool within Vercel. I'm not a really great UI guy, and I spend a lot of time in early stages messing with new stuff. So being able to just quickly generate components which work with ShadCN, which work with Tailwind really quickly and easily has been a godsend. I really like what they're building here at V0. It's pretty early on, but generally speaking, I think this is a really helpful thing for getting a first version of something done. I would not ever like ship this. Like, this is not ready to ship. You could probably keep talking to it and messing with it and get it to be better, but it's a great place to start. And that's kind of what I'm finding is what this AI stuff does really well for me is it automates and gets rid of a lot of the like menial initial stuff and allows me to just kind of think more about the creative side of things. I'm more focused on like, okay, how can I actually use this in my app and get all this stuff working with my backend, doing all that stuff, instead of just figuring out like, okay, how do I set up a table to show my sets, reps, and an edit button? It just cuts out a lot of the stuff that just I don't need or want to be thinking about anymore. And I do really like that. So I think overall, in general, there are a lot of very useful things we can use in the AI world for developers. I bet that there are a ton of tools which I haven't mentioned here, which if you guys know of, definitely leave them down below. I'd love to see them. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff here. Now for the application side of things, and this is the one that I'm really thinking about, and I think personally is one of the most important things to be considering right now. And that is, how do I put AI into my application in a meaningful way? And the first one I've seen who I think is really cracking this and is making good bets on this in the future is Vercel. I was listening to a podcast where their CEO was talking about some of the stuff they're thinking about internally about AI and generative UI especially, and I really, really like it. And I think what they've built here with their generative AI SDK, their Vercel AI SDK, is amazing. This is a little demo I built out here. It's not done yet, but basically it's a little workout tracker weights thing. So I can say, what can you do? So I'll ask my little AI, what can you do? And I'll say, okay, it's a personal weights tracker, can show your past workouts, all that stuff. But this is where it gets really cool, where I can say, show me my past workouts. And when I say show me my past workouts, it's actually going to load a component which I built. I've given it a list of components and a list of quote unquote functions that it can call based on what the user asks for. So you can have a conversation with your little workout assistant here, and it will go ahead and pull out the components that you've given it to the end user and allow them to actually work with this stuff and allow them to actually use the AI in a more meaningful way than just asking it about the stuff it was trained on, but rather you can have it do stuff in the now. Because AIs are really bad at calling like databases and making well-formatted JSON to actually ask for something or make something work. But this makes it super easy. The AI SDK is really dope. And I think a lot of applications would benefit from an interface like this. I'm imagining this in one of the products I'm working on. In Insider Viz, something I really want to do is once we get all this stuff shipped and we're done with our first round of iteration, I want to go through and I want to make a way for us to interact with our data set via an AI, via an interface where I can give it a bunch of components for companies. If we go to Eli Lilly here, Eli Lilly has this list of trades. We'll give it all those trades. It also has this graph. So imagine you're just like, hey, give me the top 10 healthcare companies by insider trading volume over the last 30 days. It has the components in its library to do that for us. It can give us a list of the top companies. I can say, okay, expand on Eli Lilly for me. And then it gives you this graph. That is a different way of thinking about applications and laying them out. I don't know if that's going to pan out in the end. It's a bet. I mean, I haven't seen this work in a big application yet. Maybe it exists. If it does, definitely let me know. But this is kind of what I'm betting on. I think this will be this is going to be a really, really cool thing in the future if we can get this right. And I want to try and get it right. I want to try and add this into the things I'm building. And Vercel is making a lot of really great steps towards that. I heard him say in the podcast too, even going further to the point where like eventually the AI is even going to be able to generate the components itself. But we're still in the place where it can't quite do that yet. You can see what V0 spits out. It's not bad, but it's like very shad CNE type stuff, and it doesn't really work on everything, and it's very much like it's a bunch of averages. So it's not ready yet, and it sure as hell could not spit out something this dynamic and this. I mean, I know I'm partially responsible for building it, so I'm biased, but I think this is really good. I think in the future it will be able to generate stuff like this for us, but we're not there yet. And for today, I want to figure out how do I create a new interface that works really well, that does this and is actually helpful, that users actually want, and that's the thing we need to test. My gut tells me they do because I think I would use it, but we'll see. When I ship this, you guys can tell me, is this actually good? And then finally, the last thing I kind of want to end this video on is going to be kind of talk about a lot of the things that I'm personally working on learning to actually use this stuff in the real world, because like I said, I don't have a huge amount of experience in this. I'm kind of just figuring this out on my own. Don't take anything I say here as gospel. This is just me, my thoughts and the things that I'm curious about. And there's a lot that I still need to learn. If you just going off the Vercel AI SDK, because I'm kind of using this as my launching point, there's a lot of things that I don't really know yet about the AI world. I want to figure out how fine tuning works and how to do that. I need to figure out how to host my own LLM and figure out what that actually means. I want to get deeper into Hugging Face. This seems really, really useful. I'm not fully sure exactly what it does. It seems like it's like a marketplace for AIs. Again, like you can see just in what I'm saying here, how little I really know about this stuff and how much I'm just like, okay, this seems like cool technology and I want to figure it out. And that's what I'm trying to figure it out is, how do we use more than just the basic GPT endpoint, but, maybe for like the weights tracker, I don't need all of GPT's functionality. So could I slim down that AI to just work really well with workout stuff and get it working super well there and then host that myself and get it cheaper? Because that's another thing too, is how are we going to scale this up and how are we going to run this stuff in production? Because obviously we can just do this on Vercel and that is where I'm going to do it for quite a while, but that might get expensive. But then again, the first class functionality with Next.js and all that stuff, I don't plan on leaving Vercel anytime soon. And I think, they seem to be at the forefront of this. And I really want to be, where they are right now because I love what they're doing here. So yeah, I want to learn more about Hugging Face. I want to learn more about getting my own models out there. Well, not training my own models. That's not happening, but fine tuning my own models and just figuring out how this really works in production and also just figuring out what users really care about here. And that's going to be the huge question is what do users care about? Because at the end of the day, that's all that really matters. If I can figure out something that users really care about, then we've got a great product on our hands and we'll be able to make it into a business and we'll all be happy. But until then, I don't know. AI is scary. It's a new technology. And while I have no idea what the heck the future is going to be, I'm not, no one does, honestly, but especially me, I don't know what the future is going to be like. I don't know how all this stuff's going to turn out, but it really does feel like this is going to be a pretty fundamental change. And I think there's, the way I've chosen to look at it is there's huge opportunity here. Things are not going to look the same as they are right now in 10 years. And I just want to embrace it. And I want to figure out what the best possible things I can build are and how I can leverage all the cool new stuff to make that happen.